Hello and welcome back to another very exciting episode. Today is going to be a two-part special. Andy, my co-host, how are you today, buddy?
I'm good. How you doing today, James?
Doing all right, and it's so special. We gotta get right into it today. Right into it. I have a very special guest with us today. He's a local but a very great gaming expert, Mr. Shane B. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Having me on the show. It's an honor to be here.
So as always, we invite you to join us on this journey as we all become legend of the nerds. Andy, what's on the schedule today, pal?
Well, like we mentioned, we're doing E3 for the next 2 days, the next two shows. E3, it's one of the biggest video game conventions out there.
You're darn right it is,
I mean,
Andy.
it's that big. We have to do 2 episodes, so that's where our first ever special's coming into.
That's right. E3, just in case everybody doesn't know, it stands for Electronic Entertainment Expo. So Shane, why don't you tell us exactly what E3 is and what can we expect?
Like you said, it's the Electronics Entertainment Expo. It's been around for a little over 10 years. It's kind of for gaming and a little bit more than gaming. Other electronics also, that's kind of more of like a CES thing. But
Okay.
for gaming, it kind of sets the tone for what's coming out for the next year, what you can expect for the new consoles. It pretty much, for retailers, it's really expensive, really important because it tells you how expensive the consoles are going to be. They're talking about price drops for the new consoles, so people who haven't jumped on board with PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One can look forward to buying one at a cheaper price.
So basically, it's a giant conference where Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox, and other electronic companies come in to show off what they have for sale in the future.
Yeah, pretty much.
Awesome stuff, Andy. What do you feel about that?
I feel like I want to go,
Think you want to go?
but all the way out there in Los Angeles.
Yep.
Someday maybe we'll host the show there one
Right.
of these days.
So as you guys can see, we have systems sitting in front of us. We have it a certain way because Andy is the Xbox expert. Shane is an expert in all 3 systems, but he mostly is a PlayStation fan. As always, since 1986, I've been a Nintendo fan all along.
You can tell by the shirt.
Top by shift, right. So that said, let's jump right into our top 5 right now.
Let's do it.
The top 5 this week is top 5 gaming consoles.
Well, my number 5, one of your favorites you've been playing for how long, but the original NES Nintendo. That was my very first console, so it has to be on my top 5 because without that, I wouldn't be the person I am today. And I mean, back in that day, Super Mario, what a great game. But starting off on, not even as Mario, he started as Donkey Kong in Donkey Kong, and then you even had the old hunting game with the little handgun.
Duck Hunter.
Yeah, that was a great game.
How many times did you try shooting that dog?
A lot of times. Dog never caught my birds. Well, how many times did you put up the gun right on the screen and try to cheat?
Oh, every time.
Did that all the
What
time.
you can do also is you do the trick where you put your finger in the trigger guard and just get it to go like machine gun.
Just keep shooting. Number 4, I'm going Game Boy Advance, a handheld.
Okay.
I love the Game Boy. I had a Game Boy Color, but the Game Boy Advance to me was great because it had the backwards compatible. So me growing up, being a big Pokemon fan that I was with all those Pokemon games, I could slide those in, still play those games along with the Game Boy Advance games.
Right.
Plus, I liked the way it was built, kind of more sideways, so it was better gripping, I thought, instead of being vertical. Where
Okay.
I felt like my hands were cramped together. But it was a great little handheld. After the Nintendo, though, for growing up, for me having, my next system was a Sega Genesis. I love the Sega Genesis. I had a bunch of games for it. I had like Vortex Man, I think is what it was called. There was a Jurassic Park and X-Men. It was just a fun game. Still had the cartridges, all that stuff. Wasn't getting into the CDs yet, but it was great. That was number 3. Number 2, another handheld, the Sega Game Gear.
Oh, wow.
I love Sega
Wow.
Game Gear. I got to go find one again and get another one because I want to relive my childhood. I mean, it was pretty bulky, but the thing I loved about it was, as a kid, you drop a lot of stuff. You don't have a good grip as a kid. I dropped that thing so much, and that thing was durable.
I had one too. The batteries were one of the biggest pains though.
That was
Took
that
like
was
6 AA batteries.
yeah. It did.
It's a lot,
It took
yep.
6 AA batteries for that thing. It's like you're buying 2 packs of
It
batteries.
was revolutionary though because they had a full color screen, which was
Exactly.
way before
first
anyone
color
else did
screen.
it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My favorite game on that was, because I was a huge Power Rangers fan growing up, the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers game on that was great. And then, like you mentioned, all the color and everything, instead of just the Game Boy being all black and white. But the downfall was the 6 batteries. They didn't have like you have now, where you have little chargers and stuff like that. I don't even remember if it had a wall plug
Yeah, I had the outlet, but I mean, it was also like, you know, you had to like sit on the edge of the couch to play
Exactly.
because you were plugged into the wall.
But it was I still think a great handheld back in its day. But my number one, it will be number one till the day I die. It's the greatest system I think ever, the Nintendo 64. It had everything great. It had one of the greatest games ever, GoldenEye, that sold millions of copies. It was the very first time I ever played Legend of Zelda, the Ocarina of Time, Pokemon Stadium, for instance. It was revolutionary. It had what you wanted. It had, I thought, a great paddle. I could hold it 2 different ways, 3 different ways. But the N64 for me, that's what I basically grew up on until I got into the CD-ROM games that they all have now. But that's my number one. That to me is the best and will always be number one in my case.
Shane, do you have a top 5?
I do.
You do?
I came a little prepared today.
All right.
I'm a little new to it though, so we were doing descending from
Yeah,
5
you go
to
from
1.
5 to 1.
5 to 1. Kind of wrote my list in the other direction, but we can make it work. So for me, number 5 would be the Nintendo Wii.
Okay.
It holds, because I've worked retail a long time, I know it was also a big powerhouse. It was probably one of the best-selling consoles. And because of that, it hits the 5 spot because it really bridged the gap between your casual and your hardcore players. You know, you had like, you know, soccer moms coming to get it for the Wii Fit, or you had like the grandparents buying it so they could do the Wii bowling when the kids came over. That kind of stuff really, you know, sold that console, and it gave that accessibility to players who didn't, you know, necessarily just grind through all the games, and they wanted to play something, you know, like the Wii Tennis, because we all did. We all had a good time with it, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Well, like you mentioned too, for the soccer moms things, at the time when that came out, Zumba was one of the biggest craves going on, and then they got smart. Let's do a Zumba. And I mean,
The issue with Zumba was the waist.
Yeah, you had the
holder for
waist belt.
controller. It just didn't work out.
no.
Right.
But I mean, it was pretty smart what they were thinking. Zumba is a big thing going on, and they did that. So
And it was good too as a retailer when we were selling the units, because it pretty much always had an attachment rate of the Wii Fit board. So it was just a good seller, and it really was. It deserves the number 5 spot because it really did. It opened the door for the Wii U, and it closed that gap that existed for decades.
it opened the door for people who aren't big video game people to want to actually go out and buy a video
Even
game.
if you just want it as a casual experience or it's a party thing, you know. And Nintendo had a history of doing that with like their Mario parties and whatever like that, but it still was always a video game console,
Right,
and
right.
people didn't get it. But now they got the Wii, they play the Wii Sports, and then it's like, okay, well, let's try Mario Party, and then it snowballed from there. Number 4 would be the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System, because it was the first mainstream console. A lot of
was.
people who will mistakenly think it was like the first console, specifically because of that one reason. But there were 10 consoles before that.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean,
there's just Atari,
Atari,
Jaguars. You
Yeah,
have
about to say
you have
Jaguar,
all of these
yeah.
different
Everyone
consoles
has
that people just never think about, because gaming for 20 years was a very obscure thing, you know.
Nintendo
and then
started
Nintendo
it.
came, and now everyone has a Nintendo in their house. I grew up, the first console I had, a Nintendo, you know. So it's definitely one of those things that holds a legacy that will never be broken. For me, number 3 would be the Game Boy system, because
Man.
now, for me, it's not necessarily that it's the best handheld console. I think that Sony's Vita, by far and large, was the best console to ever come out, handheld console. But just for some reason, Nintendo just can never be stopped. No one can ever slow them down with their sales, and it has been a titan. It's the best-selling mobile device
Right.
possible.
It was,
We're not
yeah.
talking about like phones. We're talking about like for just specifically for gaming, and it just can't be stopped. Even if the DS, you know, is starting to become dated, they just keep creating new ones, and it just never slows down that
Seems like
train.
it's the only-
Technology in those little systems just keep improving.
Right.
more
Seems
and
like it's
more.
the only handheld really on the shelf anymore.
We got
Well,
the,
that's it, you know, the
3DS at home, and that thing is just phenomenal.
And part of that is because of Nintendo dialing back the aggression with the consoles. They have more money to throw at their mobile division, and that's something that PlayStation wasn't, you know, calculating for. With the Vita, when it came out, it had that awesome screen. It had great games at launch, but they just never supported it. Whereas Nintendo was constantly using the WiiWare.
Yeah.
place for you to buy games. They're taking old games, throwing it on. Games just keep coming, and it really comes down to that. And actually, that's a good segue for my number 2 because it really is important that the games exist. That's why number 2 for me would be the PS2. The PS2 literally has the largest game library of all consoles ever come out.
Really do.
I got a lot at home.
And that's why it really just became a staple. Everyone owned a PS2. I mean, I know people who just barely even play, like, oh, I had it, even if I just played like a couple of sports games or something, or just played, some of the bigger games like a Tomb Raider or something. They had it because it was so prominent. And a lot of people I know had a PS2, and this is the second reason why I signed up to, because it was a DVD player.
Yep.
Sony has nailed that. That concept of constantly making it a dual purpose system. So if you're a kid and you want a PlayStation for Christmas, and your parents are like, I'm not shelling out $200-300 for a console for you to play games on, it's like, well, it's also a Blu-ray player. Well, it's also a DVD player. So now it's like, okay, well, we're going to get one anyway, and a Blu-ray player is $150. The kid wants a console that's $300. We're willing to spend $150 for them on Christmas or something like that.
Man.
Now the whole family's getting it. It was such a smart marketing
You
choice.
know how many people have like PlayStation 2s or PlayStation 1s and stuff like that because I'll go to a lawn sale or some of those stores that have all the old school video game systems, and you see PS2s everywhere and games everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I have a bin of them at home.
Yeah.
And anyone who's been an electronics junkie long enough or worked retail long enough will know that when the Blu-ray first came out, Blu-rays were $300. So when the PlayStation launched at $400, it was $100 more than buying a Blu-ray system, and it was a next-gen gaming console. So it was just smart.
It was
smart
marketing.
smart consumerism too. It's just a poor choice to buy a single Blu-ray player if you have
When
kids.
you could
Right.
buy a bundle.
And let's go forward into, smart decisions and not so smart decisions on Sony's part. The reason that the number 1 for me is going to be the Xbox 360 is because they saw the future of gaming. And the reason that anyone who plays games now plays them the way they do is because of the 360. They revolutionized the party system. They revolutionized the matchmaking and just how people get together and play games.
Yeah.
You don't play a game now without it being multiplayer and without having an online component that you go on and play. Even, things like when you go to play your Wii U with Super Smash Brothers, it's because of what Xbox laid down as a foundation. Will I say they made huge missteps now? Absolutely. But they came out swinging with a paid system that they weren't ready for. They were like, I don't know if I want to pay a subscription fee. So Sony said, well, we'll offer the same thing on the PS3, but we won't make you pay for it. Now, 2 things came from that. One, they didn't have the party system, which to anyone who plays games with friends knows that the party system is great. Being able to get, even if we're all playing different games, we can all talk to each other. So just having that universal chat through the system is extremely important. But by making you pay for it, they had that reliability that PlayStation has just been plagued with not having. The PS3 servers were constantly down. You could just never get matches. No one was playing it. And it was visionary, and they've tried to take that vision further with the new consoles, which we won't talk about because that was a couple years ago, last E3. But
Xbox done that though. I remember the first Xbox coming out. There's a lot of multiplayer games on that system. A lot.
And they're far from the first. We talked about it a little bit in our pre-show discussions about the Dreamcast. Was by and large probably the most ahead of its time console, but unfortunately it just never got a foothold in order to build a legacy, so that's why it doesn't make the top 5. But it was definitely, in spirit, one of the top 5s.
A pre-Wii U, as I said.
The Sega Dreamcast is probably the Xbox 360 and the PS2 combined, and
Right.
it just died too soon.
How about your top 5 there, James?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. My top 5, I had a real tough time coming with. I have 2 options on there. But I think I'm going to take one option off, and I'm going to pop on the Sega Dreamcast as my number 5 system.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun playing that system. Sega was always inventive when they did their game
Oh,
systems.
Sega was great back in the day.
Yeah. So that's why the Dreamcast is number 5 for me. Number 4 would be the Sega Genesis.
Yep.
I remember playing a lot of great games on that system. My favorite games was, remember Aladdin? Sega system? That was always a fun game to play.
Throwing the apples was always awesome.
Exactly,
I had it. I didn't get it on Genesis though. I had it on my Game Gear,
Oh, okay.
so I could take it wherever I felt
Those
like.
are 2 different games.
Oh, there you go.
There were 2 different games on each system, yeah.
Like the final level is great. You faced
Yeah.
Jafar as the snake and everything.
And also on that system, I always loved playing Battletoads. That's always a fun game.
We'll get to that later.
Always a fun game. So, number 3, the Super Nintendo.
Yep.
That game system was phenomenal for me.
I think once that came out too, you had a lot more Mario games coming out for that.
Oh yeah.
That was the best thing. Everyone loved Mario. Then you get Mario 2,
Yep.
3, all that.
Yeah, the Yoshi Island and all that.
Yep, it was the first system that Luigi actually headlined his first game.
I did not know that.
It was a game called Missing Mario, and you played Luigi and you just go through stages. It was like a trivia game, and you had to solve trivia puzzles to move on to the next level, to try and find out what country Mario was hiding in.
Okay.
It was a very unique game. Number 2 is one I have close to me. I've always played it. It's my Wii U.
Yep.
Man, when that system came out, it was busting for me. I loved it. I just love that system.
Well, I notice a lot with your Wii U that you do a lot when we're gaming together is looking on the controller right there.
Yep, that's why I love this controller,
You have
man.
the screen, and you're usually watching the screen. So I mean,
Yeah,
that's a great thing.
it's a multi-purpose thing.
Being able to play your Wii U and say you have your wife wants to watch something on TV, just change the inputs and you just change it to your screen. It's like, okay, well, do whatever you want. I'm still playing.
Exactly. I mean,
And,
I've done it multiple times.
I played Zombie U when it first came out, and that was a really cool game. And the best part about that game was, like, when you're playing, you have your screen, your character, and all that, like your traditional game. But if you wanted to go into your inventory, he actually turned his back to go in his backpack.
Yep.
As you're
On
fishing
screen,
through the
you see him
backpack.
kneeling down into his backpack.
And so you have to, like, constantly be, like, looking over your shoulder, like you're actually doing that, rifling through a
Yeah.
backpack, and there's zombies coming for you and stuff. It was a cool little dynamic, you know?
Yeah.
Now, I know we're getting off track here, just for maybe a minute, but I gotta ask you one question before you finish your top 5. Now, I said controller.
Oh, we're gonna top that after.
Okay. I wanted to make sure.
I've already. we're
Every
gonna top that after,
fans,
yes.
we're gonna have this big thing, whether it's a controller or a paddle. Don't you wait.
We're gonna talk about that in a
James's
second.
baby right there. That's a big thing
We're
on
gonna
his
talk about that
face.
in a second.
Okay. Just making
another
sure you
thing.
still remember,
Oh,
because
I
I know
remember.
that is your biggest pet peeve.
Remember, number 1, it's also on your list, Nintendo 64.
It's got to be number 1.
It does. It was one of the first systems that had the 3D dimension in there. You know,
The-
Mario 64. You had to walk around the Mushroom Kingdom.
Well, the greatest thing I thought was you had Ocarina of Time, for instance, Legend of
Yeah.
Zelda, and when you have to go from one end of Hyrule to the other, it's not like just this quick little jump. You literally are taking forever to get from one side to the other.
you gotta
That's
run
why
it.
I loved it when you grew up and you got the horse, because then I could get everywhere.
the horse was a pain in the butt to get once in a while too.
It was, but
To win the
still,
race.
it was great. My
You ever play
thing,
that game?
What's that?
Ocarina of Time?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
well, the thing to win the race is you just got to kind of cut him off right in the beginning, right there in the beginning,
Yeah.
and then just you don't even have to
You gotta
stop.
eat the carrot at the right time.
Exactly. But once you get in front of him, you can just stay in front of him, and every time he goes around, you move.
So you could even credit the Ocarina of Time as being like the first Guitar Hero too, because it had like the you had to play with the
you had to
the
play
C
the songs.
buttons.
Yep. And let's get it right out there, fans. This is, if you go to our Facebook page, you'll see this. James posted it. In the Legend of Zelda games, his name is Link, not Zelda. That's the princess. So just getting it out there.
So there's our top 5. Want to try and put them all to one? This
Let's
is a
put them
really big list
all
tonight.
together.
It was a pretty big list.
Let's see, my number 5. I had Nintendo. You had Dreamcast, and
Yeah,
Shane had Wii. So I mean, thing is, we both have any. I noticed regular Nintendo he has at 4. I have at 5. You had the Super Nintendo at 3. I kind of like the Super Nintendo now more thinking about it than the Nintendo, because
To be fair to the Nintendo, the Super Nintendo is
they're basically the same.
basically the
thing.
same thing, interchangeable, and it's the NES that still laid the
The
foundation.
reason I like the Super Nintendo more is because I felt like once they got their feet on the ground, you got to see more games. You got the Mario 2, 3. I think they had Donkey Kong
That's your
World.
Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those were really fun games.
Yep.
To me,
The 3D graphics were cool too.
I think
Yeah.
that should be a number 5.
The Super Nintendo?
5 or 4. Because we both had Nintendo at 4 and 5. I know you had yours at 3, but
What's the Super Nintendo 5? Yeah. It's on the list.
let's see.
The NES, you guys had what, pretty low?
Yeah, but I think if we have Super Nintendo on there, then it's basically the same
You're gonna see
thing.
it's listing me mostly Nintendo anyways.
Yeah, I think
mean, face it.
the NES and the Super Nintendo are basically the same thing. So I think just
You think about it, the PS1 to the PS4 is all the same system, just upgrades.
yeah, but so
You know?
well, that's what we got.
It's like saying the NES and the
there's
N64 are the same thing.
There's like 30 consoles, so I mean, I
There
think
is,
we're good.
there is.
Well, let's just say you had this for 4. I just want
Shane, what do you think about 4? What do you
I
think
think
Green
for 4,
Yeah.
You had the game.
You're the gaming expert. What would you put as 4 today?
As a 4, I would probably put like the Game Boy as number 4.
I have-
Game Boy.
The Game
Well,
Boy. is
I
number
had
4.
Game Boy Advance though. Because that was great because you could play Game Boy games on that.
It
So you
wasn't
kind of
Jam.
had both.
Well, I mean, at that point, you're just kind of talking about the Game Boy lineup. Because if you wanted to go and argue the Game Boys, it's like literally even with like the newest one, there's like the DS, and they have like the DS that doesn't fold.
Oh yeah.
They have like the DS
talking
XL,
about,
and then you have
yep.
like the DSi. So there's so many variations on it. Because the Advance was just when it started taking the shorter cartridges.
Yeah, because they were all horizontal instead of vertical.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you had then at your 4 though, you had Genesis too.
I did have the Sega Genesis. Yeah.
I have it at 3, but
Let's put the Game Boy / Game Boy Advance as number 3.
well, if we do that,
number 4.
if we do that, then you should do Super Nintendo NES because we've never done this where it's
I know.
2 at the same. So
I know.
I mean,
Well, it's tough because they are kind of the same system, but they're kind of different too.
let's just do Game Boy. I say just
Okay.
Game Boy
All right.
because we've always prided ourselves on the top 5 being one thing.
All right. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Because when we did like our wrestling matches one, we were saying some of them are kind of the same thing. That's why
Yep.
we had to specify in like a steel cage match it had to only be escape only.
All right. 3 more to go.
So you have Super Nintendo, I have Sega Genesis, and you had your Game Boy, but we'll take that off. So
This pains me to say, but I do think the PlayStation needs to be on this list. At least at number 3, because 5's already filled.
yeah, it's up to you. I mean, you have it at a 2.
It's-
How would you feel about being at number 3?
3
You think
isn't
it's
far
too
from
low?
2. It depends on what's trying to climb up over it. You know,
I
I would say the Wii would be a good number 3.
This is true. The Wii got to the point where you're having everybody play video games.
Yeah.
So I'd say the Wii at 3.
All right. And then number 2, do PlayStation 2, I guess.
I would say because I think people started getting to PlayStation more with PS2 than PS1.
Mm-hmm.
PS1 really didn't really seem much to me.
PS2. So number 1 spot.
I'm sorry, but you can't convince me that it's not N64.
Shane, number 1 spot.
The N64 didn't even register on my radar.
We gotta pick up something quick. We have a big show here.
I'm sorry, but 2 of us say N64. I think it's N64.
N64 it is.
You may be the expert, but
N64 was a fun system.
this
to
is
play.
why we tell the fans though to go on and tell us
Well,
what.
Tell them.
Everyone's
go
got an
on our
opinion.
Facebook. Tell us what your top 5 is.
And
Our
tell-
top 5 is always going to be
You
different.
just tell them why they're wrong about the N64.
But there is. You want to run down the top 5 quickly?
So we got Super Nintendo at number 5. We got the Game Boy at number 4. The Wii, which introduced video gaming to even soccer moms. The PlayStation 2, where it all started. This one says.
That's what it is.
And I know he doesn't think the N64 deserves it, but 2 of us out of 3 think it does. Nintendo 64, it was.
So technically,
amazing.
Nintendo won this top 5.
This is true. We don't even have any Sega on
But
here.
hey, you know what though? We need to talk about one thing though, because it bugs me. And I'm sure you explained it to me because you've explained it to me once before. But when I'm playing a video game, I like to grab my controller and control my characters and not paddle about.
Okay, there's a couple of reasons why it's a paddle, and that's
It's
because
because when Xbox came out, it was huge,
It's
and
before.
you could
It's
use
before.
it as
Because I
a
call
paddle.
it a paddle as a child when I was playing my Sega Genesis and the Nintendos
will
because
agree with him, I did too.
it looks like a paddle. Now it also was called a paddle by parents because it's in the same shape as like when you have those
because it's a
paddle toys.
controller.
It's not a controller. So a controller is
You're controlling.
when you're a
the
child.
system.
When you're a child though, you're not saying like, oh, can I have my controller? I need a new controller. It's
need a
a
new
paddle.
controller.
It's a paddle.
Well, if
Never
you
called it a
want to
paddle.
get where it looks like a paddle, the Wii, that looks like a
that
paddle.
literally is a paddle.
And they use it like a paddle in the canoeing ones.
Canoeing ones. Look at this guy. So you know what?
I'm not that stupid.
It's how the fans decide. Do we call it a paddle or do we call it a controller? Because you're controlling stuff.
Well, no, it is a controller. It's just the slang. Like I feel like the old school slang is still paddle, and it just steams over.
Can I just mention, how do we not have Sega on that list?
I don't know.
I don't know, but
But you know
whatever.
what is on the list
I say
though?
I could do a show on as to why Sega never seems to make any lists because Sega just keeps tripping over their own.
Hey, at least we got it out there.
We did.
And I gave it a
But
shout out.
now-
It's an honorary mention that it should be on the list if they had thought it through a little bit more.
But now it's time to get to the depth of the E3 event. And we're going to talk about each system individually. We're going to start off with the PlayStation system. Shane, what can you expect to come out of E3 this year?
Well, it's a little early just because the time we're filming this, it's going to be tonight.
Keep in mind, today is the 15th.
Today is E3. It's currently going on.
Is
Yeah, the press conference
We've had
going on.
a couple.
press conference is starting
Right before we walked in, EA was doing theirs. They announced the new Mass Effect. Last night I caught the Bethesda one, and we both caught the Microsoft one this
Xbox.
morning. So a couple of them have happened, and like I said, PlayStation's slated for tonight. So unfortunately, with the PlayStation, a little more speculation than it is actual information. But the consensus pretty much is, as usual with Sony, there's probably going to be an announcement of a new console. There's a lot of talk of a 1 terabyte.
You think they're going to do a new console already?
I do think so, only because
Or is it just
500.
be the same thing, but just
It's
slim?
we're not talking about like a new evolution of the console. We're talking about like a new model.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're not going to have this big bulky thing.
Right.
It'll probably be
So-
like half that.
What you've had with the PlayStation is you had the PS3. You know, it was huge, and then it got smaller and smaller.
Right.
The PS2 started out huge, and there was 2 more redesigns, and there was only 2 on the original PlayStation. But even with the PSPs, there's like 3 PSPs, there's 2 PlayStation Vitas. Sony likes to constantly make new models, almost as bad as Apple likes to.
It's all about the mighty dollar.
We also got a 500 gigabyte hard drive with the PS4, and I think that a lot of people thought that wasn't a lot. I mean, I know personally I delete a lot of games because each game's install is about 40 gigs, so you're looking at like 10 to 12 games before you have to start deleting stuff. So 1 terabyte sounds good. And if they're going to put a new console, a new hard drive, they might as well do a shell redesign. It will also mark the 2nd anniversary this November, so we're looking at 2 years that the console's been on the market. There's a good chance that we're going to see a price drop, especially to compete with the Xbox One and its current $349 price tag. So
Yeah, because you guys are right now at $399.
yeah, every single time that they do a redesign, it usually always comes with a price tag update. What you'll probably see is the older model go down to either $299 or $249, and then the new 1 terabyte will take the place of the 400 gigabyte or 400 price tag. So that's probably what my predictions are for PlayStation, exclusively about the machine. I know we're going to get to the games a little bit later.
Well, I mean, we might as well just stick with the games right now. I mean, what games do you expect to come out? A couple of examples.
Well, it's no secret that Uncharted 4 we'll see some Uncharted 4
All right.
gameplay. Until Dawn is a really good one. It's if you're not familiar with it, they played it last year at E3. It's kind of like a survival horror game based on like your old 80s horror flicks. It's a group of friends go to a cabin and people start dying, and there's like serial killers trying to kill you. And it's kind of cool because the choices you make are permanent. So you start off with 8 characters, and that's the game. If you lose a character, they die. So everyone's playthrough is literally going to be different.
Is it possible to
Right.
go through the game with all 8 characters?
It's possible to save all 8 characters, and it's possible to lose the game with no characters.
That's actually
That's pretty neat. You don't have the,
So
you don't
if
have the
so
normal
it-
regenerating.
Literally, 3 of us playing the game will all have 3 different experiences because we'll save this one and these 2 will die, or I'll save
Right.
these 2 and maybe he'll have 1 survivor, or we'll have all 8, and he'll be like, "What'd you do wrong?"
That's
that kind of
interesting.
stuff. It's cool.
I don't know. I just survived. I didn't care about the others.
Exactly. Other than that, we're not looking at much more other than like a hint of maybe possibly a God of War 4. They did announce,
That'd be exciting.
just to jump ahead a little bit, Gears 4. So we're looking at, they're starting to swing with the console sellers now. It's been a little dead. You have all your multi-platforms have been coming out, and you're going to start seeing a lot of distance from the old consoles.
Okay.
A lot of games have been coming out multi-platform, and that does include all the old generation consoles as well. So it's been kind of keeping the games back. And after watching Bethesda last night, we're talking like 4 games that are not going to be on the old gens. And this includes the Uncharted's and the Until Dawn, and the Gears of War 4 will not be on the old generations.
Now, you have a big game coming out that you're wicked excited about.
It is, and we should move. We'll come back to it because
You
it's.
want to come back to that?
We'll come back to it
I think
because it's
that's-
multi-platform.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
let's,
So we'll come back to that one. So, PlayStation's
Spoiler
got a
alert.
few good stuff coming out. What is Xbox coming out with, Andy?
Well, Xbox, the rumor is, like Shane mentioned with his going to a slim, the Xbox One, I mean, it's so bulky. They're talking about making it an Xbox One slim, which would be great. I mean, it takes up less room. They look much better. But the biggest news is Xbox One going and announcing that they're going to have the backwards capability.
Finally, huh?
That is the biggest thing on my list because I still have an Xbox 360 because I like my Xbox 360 games. And that's what I hate about all these video game companies not letting you always do that.
And that reminds me real quick too. I will be surprised if PlayStation doesn't have an answer to that tonight. Especially since Microsoft, if anyone who caught it, or you can check it on YouTube, decided to put a little stab at PlayStation about saying that we're not going to charge you to play the games you already own, and that's in reference to they have a PlayStation Now service where you could play the entire back catalog of the PlayStation games library, but you have to rent them. Like you're renting in a store, it's like $3 for like a week or something like that. And I mean, it was a way for them to say like, hey, we're trying, but it hasn't been performing well, and they had a subscription service that they've already revoked. So there's a lot of issues with it, and with Xbox coming out swinging hard like that, I will be shocked if they're not, at least now currently, saying like, well, we need to make this happen.
Well, that's my main reason. I mean, I don't feel like I have to run out the first day and buy a brand new system because they're so expensive, but now I do because that's my biggest pet peeve. At the Xbox press conference, when they announced that, the fans went nuts because that's what fans have been wanting out of the Xbox.
Well, let's he mentioned the game I want to talk about, and we'll get to it, but it's Fallout 4. Now, after watching all that Fallout 4, the first thing I wanted to do was play Fallout 3. And that means hitching up my PlayStation 3 instead of just
And
throwing it right.
Who wants to do that? Have to disconnect everything, put it back
exactly.
together.
So it's like that feature is more important than people think. It's because people say, well, why are you holding on to the old consoles? Well, it's like, well, a classic game I had for my Xbox 360 was Left 4 Dead. I had friends come over, we would play that game. It was a blast. But so it's every time people come over, you got to pull out the old consoles.
Exactly.
It's a hassle, and people like to be able to just throw a disc in and play. And when it's just a software thing, it really shouldn't be that hard, especially when they're announcing it now and it's literally going to be a software update. It means that it probably could have been there in the beginning, and it wasn't necessarily important to hold it from everyone.
The other big thing is the brand new the Elite controller that they're in developing right now.
The what?
It's their Elite.
Okay.
Gotta clean
The
that wax
next
out.
word?
Controller.
Okay.
You want me to say paddle? I will.
The Elite paddle.
The analog sticks on it, you actually can take those off now and put on different ones so that you can have maybe a better grip on them.
No, the first Xbox, you could do the same thing.
Yeah,
You just can put them back on.
Yeah. Well, now you
Snap all the
can.
time.
A big thing is because one of the games that's exclusively on Xbox, Forza, on the control now, you usually have the trigger buttons on the back.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're making 4 other trigger buttons that are kind of in the middle where the battery pack is, and they're little shifters. So when you're doing the driving games, they're easier to shift. You just, and it'll shift
So
into gear.
this controller is specifically made for racing games?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, it looks a little smaller too, which fans always like it smaller because you don't want those giant controllers trying to
Right.
stretch your fingers out. But I think that, and then they're adding on the headphones and all that you can listen to. But I mean, to me, the shifting is the biggest thing because that's what fans want. Because Forza is a huge game for Xbox. Of course, then going into the exclusively only on Xbox games, they showed the Halo 5 trailer,
Okay.
which was amazing.
Yep.
I think it was the Gears is exclusively
Gears 4,
on.
yep.
But the biggest one to me is made by Rare Studios, which is all those old games we used to love to play, like Battletoads,
Okay.
Jet Force Gemini, Conker's Fury, Bad Fur Day,
Banjo-Kazooie?
yeah.
Yep.
And it's 30 titles of all these old games we used to play on one disc, exclusively on Xbox, and that's going to be great because I'm going to get that and go ahead and play all those old games I used to love to play.
So those are a few games that we can expect to hear them announce when the E3 actually does start.
Oh, those have been
Well,
announced.
those
today.
got announced
Been
today,
announced
yeah, at
already.
the press conference today.
Okay.
So they'll be
Is
at.
there one title that you expect them to announce that they have not yet?
It's for PlayStation and Xbox now officially.
Okay.
Square Enix, Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah. Okay.
Only because on their Facebook page, they said it's going to be at the video game conference that's in Japan, I think. They're definitely going to be there. But they haven't said they're going to be at E3. But on their Facebook page just a week ago, they had a survey for fans to take. And this was all these questions, what you want to see in the game, what you want all of it to be about. And this survey just ended on the 12th of June, only a couple days before E3. Now,
Okay.
why would you have this giant survey asking fans what you want to see if you're not going to have it at E3 and it ending just a couple days before E3?
Huh.
Well, that's not surprising for Square Enix too, because the show they're talking about is called TGS's Tokyo Game Show, and I've actually heard from a couple of different developers that I like too, that they're holding games for Gamescom, which is a German E3. These are basically E3s across the world. So you have your E3 in Japan, your E3 in Germany, and they do this because there's a lot of with the gaming cycle and development cycle. Some games can't make it to E3, so these other ones have become bigger and bigger because
Right,
more
right.
games are just cycling into that flow. But before we leave Square Enix too, I want to mention they did play some Tomb Raider footage, which was pretty awesome.
It was amazing. Ever since they now redone Tomb Raider, I love it. But let's get to you, James. What's going on with Nintendo?
One of the biggest announcements that they're gonna make out, but they've talked about it already, was they're moving some Nintendo games to the mobile device. So you're gonna be able to play, your Mario games and maybe some small like mini game of Zelda right on your cell phone.
That's awesome.
They're finally making that jump because they've realized how big mobile gaming is right now. I mean, how many games do you guys play on your mobile phone now?
On my iPod, I play all those little app games and everything.
Exactly. Nintendo wants to utilize that, and they'll be doing that.
Yep.
Which is huge for them. They're also going to revamp and keep bringing out the amiibos. Those little tiny action figures, they're adding to every single game now. So when you're playing, Mario Kart,
Yep.
if you tap Mario on the gamepad, he gets a special ability for 24 hours.
Okay.
Or he gets a new suit for 24 hours. Things like that. And plus you have new figures coming every time. Like Ryu just got announced to play on the Super
Brothers.
Smash Brothers. Now there's gonna be a Ryu character amiibo coming out
That's awesome.
that you can keep upgrading and make them stronger and stronger and stronger.
Street Fighters was an amazing game. Unfortunately, now just exclusively on PlayStation. But
Yeah, I heard the Pac-Man's coming out soon, which is awesome.
They teased that a while ago, didn't they?
They did, and I haven't seen it yet.
well, how? Oh, go ahead.
No, good.
Well, I was going to say, don't forget about the return of a great character in Nintendo on the original Super Smash Brothers, but Star Fox, he's coming back.
I got a list of games that's coming out that they already announced, and just no dates on them. One I'm wicked excited about. I played the first one on Nintendo GameCube. It's Super Mario Sunshine 2. Next game coming out. I'm waiting for that game. I cannot wait for that game to come out. And also, as you mentioned, Star Fox is coming out. It's going to be awesome. And they also have a new Metroid game coming out, too, which is going to be wicked cool.
Now I got to ask, you going to play Yoshi's Woolly World? That game, oh my god.
I've seen a couple trailers of it. It actually looks kind of fun. I
Kind of looks a little weird to me, but
I played Kirby's Yarn,
yeah.
and that game was actually kind of cool. It's the same format,
Yep.
It was a real fun game. So you have software coming out too for all this stuff as well, because it's not just game systems. It's also different softwares. So any softwares chain that you want to talk about, or do you want to jump into your game?
There's a couple of good ones that are probably going to come out here real soon, and they've already announced most of these. But like I talked about Uncharted and Until Dawn, I'm really pumped for the Tom Clancy Rainbow Six Siege. It looks really cool
Yeah, I
and
just
pretty
saw,
innovative.
just saw that trailer.
I remember playing the first one. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's
cool game.
looking really cool. It's a 5-on-5 tactical, which I'm all about in my
Yep.
in my games. I love being able to coordinate and doing call outs with my friends and working as a
Those
team.
strategy games that makes video gaming so much fun.
And they're doing that with these shooters more and more, becoming more and more strategy centric. They announced, like I said earlier, the new Mass Effect called Andromeda is coming out.
Is that multi-purpose or platform?
That'll
system,
more
or
than likely
just-
be multi-platform.
Yeah.
All these games will be. There's also going to be a new Mirror's Edge, which
Okay.
the original Mirror's Edge was awesome game.
A lot of fans at the press conference loved when they saw that trailer.
Yeah. There's a new Star Wars Battlefront, which everyone's been talking about. They just released a trailer not that long ago. That game's going to be phenomenal. I'm very excited for that. There's a couple of more obscure games like Hellblade is going to be out. Soma is another survival horror game. I'm a big survival horror fan. I'm expecting a lot of information from Activision when they do theirs about the future of Destiny. Destiny is a very big game right now. They just released a new add-on. One got leaked a couple days ago. I'm expecting, because they've said, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but Destiny has a reputation for being a $500 million game.
Oh wow.
It's like one of the most expensive endeavors. It's the guys who created Halo, so it's huge. Activision, the publishers of Call of Duty, Bungie, the creators of Halo, came together, made a game, spent $500 million on it.
It's so weird how expensive it takes to make a video game these days.
Grand Theft Auto cost $300 million to make.
How
It's
nuts
it's
is
the
that?
single most expensive game.
It's one of those investments you know is going to pay off.
Well, it's also GTA 5 is literally the most selling media thing in history.
It really is. I mean, I never played any of them.
Can you imagine, though, when San Andreas, the movie, got announced and a lot of people thought it was Grand Theft Auto San Andreas? Can you imagine if they make a movie? If Grand Theft Auto makes a movie, it's going to...
They basically are movies in themselves. Like
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
a writing endeavor. That's my overall games I'm looking forward to. Is there any games that you're kind of looking forward to?
Andy?
Well, for me, Batman Arkham Knight. They're saying it's the final game in this Batman trilogy, or I think it's actually number 4.
Yeah, it's number 4.
But my biggest thing is you get to use the Batmobile for the first time. Watching this trailer, it was great because they said they didn't want to use the Batmobile because they wanted to give it enough horsepower. Because you want to see that thing fly down Gotham.
I've seen some
and-
footage of like the city looks beautiful too.
Well, like in the trailer, it's awesome because you can be hauling down the streets and then power eject yourself out, and the
I
car,
didn't see that.
the
That's
car
awesome.
just drifts like right into a bunch of jokers and stuff like
That's
that.
cool.
It's awesome.
That's cool.
And there's also where you get to not just be Batman, but you can be other some of his allies, like your biggest one, Nightwing. You could play as Nightwing. How fun would that be for
That
you?
would be awesome.
Unfortunately, Catwoman. At least for the girl fans out there, they can be
I
Catwoman.
mean, it's
I'd
the
say,
first time you
Bat-
play Catwoman in a game anyway.
Batgirl's also gonna be playable.
Yeah, I saw her too. They show her a quick clip of her.
You're a big Batgirl fan,
And
right?
then, of
Batgirl.
course,
Injustice Days, Batgirl is my bottom right there. She's
of
my
course, in
go-to.
our DC episode when we discussed all the Robins,
Yep.
it looks like Jason is the Robin that you get to play.
Jason Todd, yeah.
Yeah, it looked like him.
Huh.
So that is going to be a great game. Also looking forward to. I'm a huge Halo fan. I never was a Halo fan because I always was a PlayStation person. And then I went over to my little cousin's house because he has Xbox, and I played Halo for the first time, and I fell in love with it. Guess what I got the next day? An Xbox.
Right.
Halo 5, a lot of people are ripping on it because they're sick and tired of the shooter kind of thing. But that's the genre of the game, the genre of the game.
Right,
That's
right.
a shooter game. It's going to be great, I think, because you have 2 different Spartans you can use. You can use the regular character from Halo, Master Chief,
Okay.
and then they got this another Spartan that's hunting him. So you get the 2 storylines that you're going to be playing at the same time in the game.
Well, they did a smart marketing technique, and there are some major issues with the Halo series. So people who are criticizing have a little bit of a basis. I did play 4, and I did a review it back when I was still doing my site, and I didn't give it a very favorable review because it just seems like they just kind of gave you a game and put Halo on it. I've been following this one though, and it seems pretty intense. Like you said, the dynamic is basically they released 2 trailers in the point of view of each character, and so you don't know who is the villain of the series.
Exactly, because
they allude that Master Chief kind of just
he went AWOL.
he went AWOL and kind of did his own thing, and this guy's hunting him down because they know, like, well, this is also Master Chief, and this is like, we need this guy to not be against us, so we need to hunt him
Exactly.
down. So they send the best they have. But the trailers, they both have each of them downed and about to be executed by the other one.
Yeah, depending
So
on
you're
which
getting
way
the
it's lying.
story being told from 2 different people, so you don't know who's lying to you
Well, that's
either.
the thing, though, is if you're a huge Halo fan, you know Master Chief is the good guy. So you're thinking in number 5, he has to be
But
the
thing
good
is,
guy, though,
they
too.
introduced though in number 4, his AI Cortana has started getting corrupted because they're not supposed to last as long as the
Yep.
Spartans are. So Master Chief himself is outliving his life expectancy, and now his AI is starting to go on the fritz because he's not supposed to be alive so long.
See, my problem was when I played Halo 1, 2, and 3, I enjoyed them because the storyline continues. It's a trilogy. And when I cut Halo 4, I'm thinking, what's going to happen? Because he's floating around in space at the end. And they started. I actually enjoyed the game. And what I heard at the press conference was they're saying that this is a continuation of actually at the end of 4. It's going to start right up where 4 ended. So it's
Yeah, that
almost,
gives the credence that he might be starting to lose it too.
exactly. So that means there'll probably be a 6 because they're probably doing a whole new trilogy.
Right.
Which that's what I like. I like games when they're continuing, just like my movies. I like them doing a continuation. But yeah, I mean, Halo 5. We were talking this before the show. Doom is coming back.
Yeah, so let's move into like the Bethesda things. They killed it last night. Bethesda did their first solo press conference. They put a lot of money on it, and I can tell you one thing: they sold a copy of Doom because I wasn't going to buy it before. I had little to no interest. Doom 3 was cool, but the game is very dated, and I instantly pre-ordered after watching it. It is amazing. It's an amazing game.
Me being the sports guy too. In August, Madden 16 for me comes out. Graphics on it look amazing. Looks like I'm watching an actual football game. But then at E3 this year, for you and me, WWE 2K16 will be at E3.
Oh, wow.
So meaning probably on a Raw or SmackDown, we'll know who's going to be on the cover soon. So,
Probably.
but those are just a few of mine. Hit us with.
Do you want to continue your...
Okay, so Bethesda also announced Dishonored 2.
Okay.
They're going to re-release the old Dishonored on all the consoles, the new next gens, with all the DLC to get you a little hyped for that. And then they announced Fallout 4, which got teased a couple weeks ago, and yeah,
This is
it's
something you are super excited
Super
about.
excited
too.
for
There's a lot of fans
anyone
for it,
who's
that's why.
really got their teeth sunk into Fallout knows that you lose your life. I think my last playthrough had like 400 hours on it.
Oh, wow.
And the best part is too that you wouldn't think, because when you play most games, like people get into like World of Warcraft or something like that, it's easy to lose the time because you're playing with all these people. Fallout's a solo experience, so you literally are just kind of like writing your own story, playing as yourself in this situation, and there wasn't much to do in the game in comparison to this. So people are seeing all of the advances with the next gen system, and it's like, okay, well, I had this very contained world to live and play this story through. Now they're giving you one like 4 or 5 times bigger. They announced that there's going to be home crafting, so you can actually, like, when you're finding all this decayed and broken down houses and stuff, you can salvage it all, and then you're going to be able to build your own house.
Oh, that's nifty.
And build up defenses so while you're gone, like if raiders show up. It's very Mad Max. I don't know if anyone's not familiar with it. It's basically imagine Mad Max situation. You have your raiders and all that. And what happens is that you can set up power lines and defenses. So they show up, they get gunned down. They show all that in the trailer. Very cool.
Now, this game also, I've seen, has a new character editor, too.
Yep, new character editor. Did you watch the footage?
I might have seen some.
Yeah, so that's good. Yeah,
the ball today.
The character editor is really cool. The other one was very finicky in the sense that everyone kind of looked the same, so you could edit it, but you really didn't get much change out of it. They announced that with the weapons, because in New Vegas they offered a little bit of weapon customization. There's going to be 50 base weapons, and that means thousands of different possibilities. So you can change every little aspect of the gun, and everything you want to buy or build to is also available through breaking down. Like if you want lenses, you can go find glasses, and you can build like a scope for your rifle.
Oh, wow.
All sorts of weird. It's just very cool scavenge-based building system. They are releasing it on just exclusively next-gen consoles. They also have a Pip-Boy edition, which is basically the thing on the arm. They're giving away a functioning one.
It looks so lame.
It's
Still pretty neat though to have.
It is neat. It just looks really lame.
So it's giving you that second screen experience, and it's also going to have an app where you can play with it on your arm and do the functions that actually happen in the game.
Okay.
So it's just another level of immersion that they're playing with. It's going to be cool to see it based in Boston. You see a couple of different things in there in the trailer, like the mutants that were in the DC one are all dressed like redcoats. They're alluding that some are going to be dressed like redcoats. That looks pretty cool. A couple of fun facts about it too. It's going to be out on 11/10/15, so this November 10th you can have it. It's interesting that it's coming out at the same time as Tomb Raider, though. That's very shocking to me that they would, or I'm sure they didn't know, but my concerns for Tomb Raider are the fact that it is, we didn't mention it, going to be console time exclusive for the Xbox.
Right.
So you already have this alienated half of your fan base. So sales are cut in half, and they're also going to be competing with one of the most anticipated games of the decade. Just two different publishers, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm concerned about how well Tomb Raider is going to do after this release. But just to backtrack a little bit more on the Bethesda, so Doom also is going to have a map editor mode.
Okay.
So you can basically create infinite maps. And they announced that these things that they're doing, all these mods and stuff you can do, it's going to have this new thing called BethesdaNet. So if I make a map and you're playing on your Xbox One and say you're playing on the PC, if I create a map, I can upload it. You both can also still play on that same map, which is revolutionary in the sense that PC has always had a strong modding community, but you can never really interact with that because the consoles are closed operating systems. I can't go and mod stuff in my PlayStation. It would break the warranty. And it's people don't want to do it because it's not like it's a Windows. You can just go in and just install files. Having that ability to throw mods between the consoles, I think even just having the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 being able to share stuff is just,
That is kind of cool.
it's awesome. It's a cool
It
experience.
seems like the theme is all about editing. Everything's being edited now. Edit your characters, edit your levels.
It's
edit everything,
customization, it's
which
immersion.
is awesome.
Right.
Brings out the creativity, which brings me to what Nintendo is going to announce more vividly during the show. And that's with their new Mario game. It's called Mario Maker. In this game, you can actually create a Mario level
That's awesome.
from the very first Mario game. So you can create the gaps, you can create the pipes, you can create, the blocks, the enemies, all that stuff. And the previews of this game looked kind of cool because they showed a guy creating a level where it's all blocks everywhere.
Are we talking like
And-
Super Mario era?
Yeah. So when there's a turtle shell, he kicks it and the shell goes everywhere, and you can control it where it goes. You're running through the level and you're jumping and the gap you can't reach it. You can actually pause it and add the blocks underneath you.
That's nice.
That's awesome. It sounds kind of like the Nintendo remix they did.
Yeah.
That was a kind of a cool concept.
Yeah, the remix was kind of a cool game. I played the first, I haven't played the second one yet.
If you're not familiar, they basically just took all the old Nintendo games and like jumbled them together and made little challenges like
Yep.
Mario running through like a Metroid level or something
Yeah,
crazy like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
And another game, I'm waiting for more trailers on this one. 'Cause I'm a huge Legend of Zelda fan. And I'm talking about Zelda U.
Yep.
They said December. I don't think so.
The graphics that I've seen look amazing.
I
on
don't
that
think
game.
December. I think next year sometime.
Be great.
I don't mind. I want them to take their time.
It would be nice for December because I think that's where they're gonna make their big bucks on it because of the holidays.
It could.
But there's a lot of stuff coming out in the holidays, so it would make sense if you don't want to compete to go next
I
year.
wouldn't mind it being a Valentine's Day gift. You know what I'm saying? That'd be a nice time to do
At
it.
least just give me something I can look forward to. I think that was the one thing I was concerned about after the Bethesda conference, is that they weren't going to give us a date. Everyone was salivating for a date. Just give us dates. Like Doom, they didn't do that. They said it was going to be like spring next year. But it's just, we just want the date. Give us something to look forward to. Give us the mark on the calendar so I can take time off.
Quickly, Nintendo though is that last year they never even showed E3.
This is true. Yeah.
This year they came back huge, and after 25 years they brought back their Nintendo World Championship show, which was awesome.
I just hope they can keep the momentum because a lot of people are speculating that Nintendo might be on the way out. It wasn't a good sign for them to pull out E3 last year.
It wasn't, but then again, it could have been a good sign.
And there's a couple concerns about them moving to the mobile market as well. That
Yep.
We
Well,
don't. We
the way the future can tell us what's going to happen. I
Exactly,
mean,
you got to take risks.
all three systems are doing amazing in their own way. They all market to certain things. I mean, my system, it markets to family and fun, PlayStation probably markets to, like a lot of multiplayer and a lot of solo playing games. Xbox, probably
Doesn't-
around the same thing, but I mean,
it's more of the
more
media
graphic and
and
more-
the TV.
more, violence with the Xbox, I think.
Well, before we end, because I know we're running out of time.
We are running out of
I
time.
forgot to mention another game out there, Lego Dimensions. It's going to be, I think, all the fans out there that are fans of those Lego video games, they're mashing them all together. So you could have a character like in the trailer, they have Batman with Gandalf the Grey, and then there's that the girl Lego from the movie.
Yep.
They're all there. But then the level they're playing on is the game Portal. So it's pretty neat. You got to jump through portals. But they showed a part where Gandalf's using his magic and creates his own portals. So the voice in the Portal game is getting ticked off at Gandalf because he's like, you're cheating. He's like, no, I'm not. I'm using magic. So that was pretty neat. And then also just want to mention for new technology, not new technology, but something new for Xbox partnering with to compete with PlayStation's Morpheus virtual reality
Which
headset.
we even talk about, yeah.
Well,
Forgot all about
we
that.
got part 2 coming up, though.
Yeah, we do
can
have part
always-
2.
I will know more of it after E3.
We'll be able to
happens.
do more accurate comparison.
But just quickly, Xbox has officially announced they're partnering with Oculus. That way, they already have now the headset. So once this partnership's over with, for every time when you buy an Oculus headset, it'll come with an Xbox controller. So all you have to do is download or stream your games to the Oculus headset, and you can play wherever you go. To me, it's awesome to be able to do that. And of course, they got to try to stick it to Sony over here.
All the time.
So, but I mean,
But anyways, I mean, it's been a huge show. There's still so much more we can go over.
so much.
You know, so we have part 2 coming up in a couple of weeks. Guys, we may or may not have a top 5 for you next week because of the material that we're going over. It's going to be huge. We have a lot to go over in that show. Shane, are you going to join us again for that show?
I will make it.
You'll make it. It's been enlightening.
Well, let's just finish the show up.
Want to sign us off?
Everybody out there, remember, join us on our Facebook page at Legends of the Nerds. Like us. Tell us what you did and didn't like about the show. Give us your top 5. Don't forget, we also have a YouTube page. Go ahead and subscribe to it. You can watch all of our past episodes. And James sometimes posts some of his little news bulletins on there.
I love those little news
They
bulletins.
are pretty neat. But if you ever miss an episode, just run over to our Facebook or our YouTube page. Catch up on everything. And like we said, don't forget to join us next time for our part 2 special on E3. So everyone out there, stay nerdy and enjoy your day.
Stay nerdy.